I knew I just had to show you just how easy making gluten-free pikelets really is. And all with basic ingredients you've already got in your pantry. For all of the tastiest and simplest gluten-free recipes, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to be notified when I post a new recipe every Wednesday. Hello, my name is Stacey Dad and I am the Chief Baker and owner here at Champagne and Gumboots, an exclusively gluten-free bakery that specialises in creating 100% celiac safe sweet treats and cakes that taste so good you'll never know they're gluten-free. And today I'm sharing all of my gluten-free baking secrets with you. So whether you like them fresh for breakfast on a Sunday morning or cold in the fridge or a sneaky one in the kids' lunchbox, these pikelets are divine and seriously easy to whip up. So we're going to start with a couple of little things that we need to put to the side. First off, we're going to put our 1 cup of milk and our teaspoons of lemon juice into a jug and set it aside. What we're doing is creating buttermilk. Now, buttermilk is a very American ingredient and is often found in pancake recipes and is the secret to why these are so light and fluffy. Buttermilk is hard to find in Australia, so make it yourself, and it's as simple as using milk and a bit of lemon juice. Now, if you don't keep lemon juice on hand or have a handy tray out the back, use vinegar instead in the same quantity. In another jug, make sure you've got your butter pre-melted and you're just going to leave it aside to let it cool. In a large bowl, we're going to take 1 cup of gluten-free self-raising flour. Again, this recipe doesn't need a specific blend. You can use any gluten-free flour that you've got lying around. Now, my 1 cup measurements of flour are a little larger than most, so you want 180 grams. The good thing about this recipe is if it is a little bit thick because you've put too much flour in, you just thin it out with a little bit more milk. Easy. Now, we've got our flour into our bowl, so we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. You don't need a lot in this recipe, just enough to give it a little sweetness. We're then going to go in with our final dry ingredient, bicarb soda. So you'll notice by using self-raising flour, which already has a rising agent in it, and adding baking soda, we're doubling up. But you'll see why. 1/4 teaspoon of bicarb, and using a whisk, we're just going to simply bring those ingredients just loosely together. We're going to make a well in the middle of our little puddle of flour and dry ingredients, and into that we're going to add your cooled melted butter, 1 large egg, and half of your pre-prepared butter. Now, if you actually have a look at it, you'll start to see some of the milk solids, okay? And this is the acidity working with the milk. We're just going to go in with roughly half. And using a whisk, we're going to bring it together. Now, gluten-free flour has a rather bad reputation for being lumpy. And it's true, I won't lie. So, you will need to put a bit of effort in here and really get your mixture working out. It's quite the arm workout. What you have now is a really thick batter. Now, this is not a pikelet batter, okay? We want something that very lightly dollops off the spoon. So we're going to very slowly add little bits of milk. So I'm going to add maybe half of that again. And we're going to start off very slowly mixing in. This is a great recipe if you want to get the kids involved in the kitchen. My son loves making pikelets with his grandma, sometimes with me. But mummy has a little bit less patience, I think. Again, whisking until all of that milk incorporates in. It takes a little bit, so be slow. So again, we've got a now beautiful smooth batter, but it's still really thick. So, in with the last bit of our milk. Now, you see how the batter dollops off of our whisk? Perfect pikelet batter. That's our batter done. So now what we're going to do is move across to the stovetop and cook these babies up. How do you like to eat your gluten-free pikelets? Are you slather them in butter and jam, or stack them and smother them in maple syrup? Let me know in the comments below. We're using a medium heat and going to melt butter into the pan before we begin. All right, so we've got our butter gently melting. We're just going to use that to grease the pan, and using a tablespoon, we're just going to take dollops of the batter, which you have noticed in even just a couple of minutes it's been since we popped this aside, the rising of our batter has already begun. So we're getting beautiful fluffy pikelets. This batter is quite thick, so you won't find that it will do the typical pikelet behaviour, which is as it cooks, the air bubbles will start to pop on the top, and that's how you'd know to flip it over. Unfortunately, because this batter is so thick, it doesn't happen. Well, it barely happens. So what we do is we cook it for a couple of minutes each side. We will be able to slide our egg slice under just underneath to give it a good look. If it's a nice golden brown colour, we'll flip it over. We'll give it the same sort of couple of minutes on the other side, and they'll be good to go. You can see just a little bit of bubble action, just where the batter's a little bit thinner. Just want to make sure you stay on a medium heat. Too hot and you'll crisp up the bottoms without cooking the batter inside. We're just going to have a quick little look. Yep, they're looking beautiful. So we're just going to give them a little flip. Now these babies are nice and fat. Don't squish them down too much because you want that lift. Whoop, and whoop. I'm very glad I nailed that. All right, these are looking good. Nice and golden brown, even colouring. Let's pull them off and pop them aside. We're just going to keep going like this until we've used up all the batter. Whoops, I singed that one. You may need to use a little bit more butter to grease your pan as you go. Now, do you know what the difference between a pikelet and a pancake is? Well, a lot of people will say it's the sugar. We put sugar in pikelets, whereas pancakes traditionally don't have any sugar. But the rest of the batter itself is quite similar. It's flour and eggs, milk, a little bit of sugar in our case. Not a lot else. So what's the difference? The difference is a pikelet is a heavier batter and cooks a little bit more solidly, and as such will give you a thicker, denser, fluffier, taller pikelet. Pancakes are typically quite a runny mixture, and they are actually normally cooked quite thinly with only a little bit of lift and then stacked, as is the American way. But we're in Australia, so pikelets win the pancake debate, in my house at least, as is the honour of being the pikelet cook means you get to eat them fresh from the pan. They taste just like the real deal. A fabulous thing about this recipe is that the batter can just be times by 2 or 3 very simply to increase the number of your pikelets. So if you're feeding a horde, do a double or even a triple batch. Or if you want to get really fancy, this is something my mum used to do when I was a kid. She'd grate apple and mix it into the batter. It was delicious and is still, to this day, one of my favourite breakfast treats. Once you've finished frying off your batter, you'll have perfect, thick, fluffy, gorgeous, gluten-free pikelets, ready to be smothered with butter or maple syrup and eaten. And there you have it, the perfect breakfast treat. And if you liked this pikelet recipe, then you're definitely going to want to download my 7 steps to nailing gluten-free baking, where I share all of my insider tips and tricks on how to help you get back in the kitchen and nail those gluten-free desserts and treats that you've always wanted to make. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you stay notified when I post a new recipe every week. So what do you think? Do my gluten-free pikelets pass the pikelet versus pancake debate? I'm definitely team pikelet. Let me know which team you are in the comments below. Now, I'm headed back to the kitchen, folks, to work on another delicious gluten-free recipe. And this one is a truly iconic Australian dessert. Or is it? I'll see you in the kitchen.